And hello everybody, I am back, and what you're getting today is a video that I originally shot last week, but something happened in the editing process where the video file got corrupted and I ended up losing everything, but it ended up being kind of fortuitous because a bunch of stuff dropped that I want to talk about, so it makes more sense to have it all in this video than it would have been to just make another video later. So, you're going to be getting show reviews and trailer reactions and a few other things from me with a little bit of wrestling sprinkled in because Elimination Chamber is happening this weekend and I do want to talk about that. So, hopefully you all enjoy this video, and if you do, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you get notified when I post new stuff. But with all of that said, let's get started. So, let's get the wrestling stuff out of the way. Not a whole lot to talk about. I mean, The Rock officially turned heel and joined the Bloodline in a segment that went over well. Rock's analogy, his sports analogy, kind of confused me because he made it sound like Cody was just being a crybaby and getting his title shot that way, and I'm sitting there like, but he won the Royal Rumble. He did exactly what you're talking about. You lose and then you come back. It's like Cody did exactly what you're talking about. So I couldn't tell if Rock was like babbling or if he was being a lying heel. Like, it was a little confused, like what he was getting, the point he was getting across was a little confused. But the overall point that the Bloodline is now stronger than ever, I thought all of that got over well, and people are like looking at every little possible angle that they could do at WrestleMania, and we'll see how all of that goes, because there's a lot of potential for some exciting possibilities. What I will say is that Cody better walk out of Mania with that belt come hell or high water, because I don't know if they can string along the fan base for another year of waiting for Cody to complete his story. And also, I'm at a point where it's like they could put R-Truth in this match, and I'd be like, yes, put the belt on R-Truth, because I'm just sick of Roman at this point. So, I actually really like R-Truth now. I was never the biggest fan of him, but he's been my favorite part of Raw lately. So, yeah, it's, again, it'll be very interesting. I think, a lot of people's interest in WrestleMania severely declined with all the recent events, and now with everything everything that they've done since the press conference, I think a lot of that interest has come back. They've won a lot of people back with this, so we'll see. I mean, Cody better walk out of Mania with that friggin' belt. That's all I know. Or if not Cody, they better come up with some kind of screwy plan B where somebody gets that belt off of Roma, or else I just don't care. I've heard speculation that Seth Rollins is going to turn heel and cost Cody the match for being insulted that Cody didn't pick him as his WrestleMania opponent. And if that happens, I will give up on WWE forever, because that is ridiculous. But in any case, now, if you want to have Seth turn heel on Cody, I would do it after Cody wins the belt, and that's your big thing. We're going to unify the belts after Cody goes over. That's what I would do. Please get the belt off of Roman, for the love of all that is holy in this world. We're done. I'm done. We need to stop this. But we'll see what happens at WrestleMania. This weekend, we have Elimination Chamber. I have the card pulled up here. Let's take a look. Not much on here. I'm not seeing too much potential for big surprises. We've got the Judgment Day defending the tag team titles against Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, a new team on SmackDown that's been doing quite well. But I don't expect a title change here. I think the tag title match at WrestleMania is going to be Judgment Day versus Awesome Truth, which would make sense storyline-wise. But this should be fine. This should be good. And like I said, what's their name? The New Catch Republic. They've been doing pretty well, so hopefully they're able to put together a pretty good tag match here. We've got Rhea Ripley defending her title against Nia Jax. There's no way in holy hell that Rhea Ripley's dropping that title in her home country right before WrestleMania. It's not happening, so Rhea's going over there. And then we have the two Elimination Chamber matches, the Women's Chamber to determine who will face the winner of Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax, who will be Rhea Ripley, barring some kind of stupid decision. But I'm looking at this lineup. It's got Becky, Bianca, Liv Morgan, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Raquel Rodriguez, who just recently returned. Welcome back, Raquel. I'm picking Becky to win this because they've already basically promoted Becky versus Rhea Ripley. So to me, it's like Becky's got this in the bag. Again, barring something silly or unfortunate. Then in the men's chamber match, the winner faces Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. It's Randy Orton, Bobby Lashley, LA Knight, Kevin Owens, Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. LA Knight and Logan Paul are going to face each other at Mania. I called this months ago, so most likely there's going to be some kind of interaction there in the Rumble that sets that match up for the U.S. title. Kevin Owens isn't winning it. Randy Orton's and Bobby Lashley are just kind of there to fill the spots. I mean, Drew's been the top heel on Raw and has been like the main guy in this whole situation, and as a kind of a plan B to Punk and Rollins, I think Drew pretty much has to win this. Again, from storyline perspective and what they've set up on TV, it pretty much has to be Drew that goes over here. So I'm picking Drew to win the Chamber. And another segment we've got is the Grayson Waller effect. With Seth freaking Rollins and Cody Rhodes. Now, I'm anticipating this to set up the Rock and Roman tag match that has been heavily rumored for night one of WrestleMania. If they go that route, I think that it would be very cool, but I think I think this segment is probably going to set up that tag match and make it official, or if not make it official, at least lay enough breadcrumbs to where we all know that match is going to happen. So, yeah, it's, again, not a bad card by any means. It's just kind of like an empty one. I'm not a fan of having, two of the same gimmick match on a pay-per-view. You all know, anybody who's followed my channel knows that. Not my favorite thing in the world, but it's like, okay, whatever. It's a final bump before WrestleMania. I don't expect any major surprises or anything out of this card, but we'll see. Could be interesting. And that is pretty much the end of the wrestling talk for me on this video. So if you're only here for wrestling talk, sign off now, because it's all movie trailers and TV shows moving forward. So stay tuned for that. Now, first up with the television show reviews, these are, both shows that I'm going to be reviewing are shows that I'm a little late to the party on. These shows have kind of already come and gone, and anybody worth a damn has already talked about them. But I do care about these properties, and I figured I would give my own 2 cents about them. So let's start off with Netflix's Masters of the Universe Revolution, which is the follow-up to Masters of the Universe Revelation, which I reviewed in the past. And if anybody remembers that video, I was not a happy camper when that show dropped. I was very, very angry. I think of all the show reboots and intellectual property reboots that have happened in the last decade or so, none of them have made me as angry as the Masters of the Universe one did. Even something like Thundercats Roar, which I was like, okay, you made this on purpose to piss people off, right? And even for as bad as that one was, this was just on another level, because this one I felt lied to, and I think that was my biggest problem with it. Revelations was a perfect example of basically tricking the fan base. And I'm going to talk about this a little later when I talk about one of the trailers that dropped that I'm going to discuss. But, He-Man was all over the marketing for that show. Anybody who remembers, the media blitz and all the advertising for Revelations, He-Man was all over the marketing. And then they killed He-Man in the first episode. And then they wondered why everybody was upset. And for me, it was so bad that I didn't come back for part 2, because that was Revelations was split into two 5-episode parts. I didn't come back for part 2. I was like, I'm not watching that. Screw you. I'm done. And I thought Netflix made a mistake in doing that, because there was a huge drop-off in from part 1 to part 2. And it showed when you look at the YouTube views on the trailers and the clips. It was like there was a lot of interest and a lot of excitement for Revelations part 1, and a lot of that audience did not come back for part 2. And I think a lot of people I think the CGI show that got released suffered because a lot of people were mad at Revelations, and I think a lot of people skipped the CGI show completely out of spite. Myself almost included. Fortunately, the CGI show got enough good word of mouth to where I was like, okay, maybe I'll give this a shot. And it was actually okay. I didn't, it had its problems, but nothing infuriating. And it was overall like a solid show for kids. And hey, at least He-Man and Skeletor were in it, so I'll give that show that. But I think a lot of people missed out on it because of the disappointments surrounding Revelations and Kevin Smith's handling of the disappointment towards Revelations. So when I heard they were, first of all, when I heard they were doing a season 2, I was like, are you out of your mind? Why? What purpose could you possibly have for bringing this back? Because everybody, the well's already been poisoned. You've already ticked us off, and a lot of people were not planning on coming back. But even when the trailer dropped, I'm like, okay, the trailer looks good, but again, the trailer to Revelations looked good the first time around, and I saw how that turned out. So I don't believe you. You are lying to me. But once again, the word of mouth was much better than Revelations was. So I was like, okay, curiosity is going to kill this cat. I'll go ahead and watch it. It's 5 episodes, so, even if it's bad, like, it's not going to take up too much of my time, right? So I decided to watch it, and, God, what can I say? It is better than Revelations. I will start off on that note. It was nowhere near as infuriating as Revelations. And I want to start off by saying that even though I did watch Revolutions, I did not go back and watch part 2 of Revelations. I figured, okay, I'll read a summary online to see what happened, and I will... I'll just go into that blind because I don't want to watch part 2 because I know that was bad. And sure enough, what the plot synopsis I read was like, yeah, this sounds horrible. But so I went into it having not watched part 2 of Revelations, and honestly, there was enough clunky expository dialogue in Revolutions to kind of fill me in. It's like, okay, so even if I didn't read the plot synopsis, I could have figured it out. So it's like, all right, fine, whatever. There was enough to get you caught up. So. Okay, so Revolution, this one, exact opposite, going into Revelations, expectations were high. This one, expectations were super low because of how bad Revelations dropped the ball. And I guess it kind of succeeded in low expectations because people seemed a lot more positive to Revolution, even though I think much, much, much fewer people watched it. I heard some people bragging that, Revolution was in the Netflix top 10 for like a week or something. I'm like, yeah, it's a brand new show. It better be in the Netflix top 10 after it first drops for at least a few days. I would... if it's a really good, well-received show, I would expect it to be there for a long time, like a Stranger Things or something like that. But I was like, what kind of an accomplishment is that? You're a brand new show. Of course you better be in the Netflix top 10 for an extended period. But I don't think the audience for this was very big because not a whole lot of people are talking about it. But the people that did were a little bit more positive towards it. So I went into it with low expectations and an open mind, and the end result was that it was not as bad as Revelations, but it still had problems. I will say this one didn't make me angry. I'll say that. I was not infuriated while watching Revolution. This one, and I'll also say, had Revelations been at this level of quality from the very beginning, and this is the show we got from the very beginning, I would have been like, it was kind of dumb, but at least it was kind of fun, and it kind of felt like Masters of the Universe. The best description the best comparison I can make, it reminded me of when I saw G.I. Joe Retaliation. If you've seen the G.I. Joe movies, Rise of Cobra completely missed the mark on how to make a good G.I. Joe movie. The Snake Eyes movie, which I skipped entirely, demonstrated a complete lack of understanding of the character that it was showcasing. Even from its own marketing, it's like, okay, you didn't understand Snake Eyes at all, or else you wouldn't be marketing the movie like this. So that movie screwed up. Before I'd even seen it, I knew they screwed up. Retaliation was not a great movie or even that good of a movie, but it felt like a G.I. Joe movie. The iconography and the feel and the tone of it felt like G.I. Joe. So at least it was like, that movie flirted with competence, and the cast was mostly good, and there were a couple of fun moments, and the characters they utilized felt true to the characters, even if the overall story and writing was not very good. There were a lot of things that they got right as far as capturing the essence and the spirit of G.I. Joe. That's kind of what Revolution is. It's like, look, it's not the best told story of all time. A lot of it is very bloated and very rushed, and relies on the characters being complete morons for any of it to work. But at least this one kind of feels like Masters of the Universe, more so than Revelations did. Hey, He-Man's in it. That's kind of cool. And you've got He-Man going around doing heroic things. That's nice to see. It's like, oh, look, they didn't screw over He-Man. That's nice. Oh, look, Skeletor has a much bigger role, and he actually ends up being the big bad of the series and battling He-Man at the end. The final battle is He-Man versus Skeletor. I'm like, whoa, wow, what a crazy concept to when you're doing a Masters of the Universe show, wow, focusing on He-Man and Skeletor, that's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, they at least got, like, the bare bones essentials right. Some of it looked cool. I think having the Horde there, added at least a little bit, to make it feel more like, more true to this property, that I've grown up with and I've loved. Teela, they rewrote her, and it's a different voice actress. I forget her name, but she played Supergirl in the CW Supergirl. Much better than Sarah Michelle Gellar. No knocking on Gellar. Of course, the writing that they gave her was also very, very bad, but this voice much better matched the character, I thought. And Teela wasn't written like a completely insufferable, narcissistic jerk this time around, so Teela was at least not unlikable. I'll give them that for at least getting that right. Of course, I think because of the way season 1 ended, they kind of made Teela too powerful, so they had to have her go off on her own little side quest and removed from most of the action while she's off doing her own thing with Granomir and Evelyn, which I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But so Teela was, like, removed for a good portion of it, and it felt like that was because, well, she's too powerful. If she was there, she would just beat Hordak in 10 seconds, so it didn't really matter. Excuse me. But yeah, Man-at-Arms, doesn't get completely, dressed down by his daughter and yelled at by her the whole time, so that's nice to see. Overall, it was like, yeah, this kind of feels nice. You get Orko interacting with Gwildor, which felt like a natural thing to do if you're going to use Gwildor, and I'm like, yeah, that works. It works. And the whole idea of starting off with He-Man or Prince Adam having to come to terms with his father dying, and does he assume the throne of Eternia, or does he go off being He-Man? Which does he do? That's a good premise for a He-Man story and a Prince Adam dilemma and all that stuff, and things that the original show never really got into, and I think is a good direction to explore. It's like, what would He-Man do once it's time for him to kind of assume the throne and take his father's place? The resolution to that is really stupid, but, other than that, it's kind of a nice starting point. It's like, okay, cool. You've got the Horde invading. It's like, okay, that's cool. You've got this motherboard thing who's not Shadow Weaver. And now my understanding of this, and Clownfish kind of talked about this in their review, but apparently any character that is from She-Ra and originated from the Filmation show, they can't use. So that's why Shadow Weaver was not in this, even though the Horde is ever present in this thing, which is weird to me. It's like, I don't know, because there's not a full embargo on Filmation characters because Granomir was in this, and Granomir came from the Filmation show. So I don't know what the rights are, and I'm surprised that it doesn't all fit under one umbrella, but whatever, it is what it is. So we couldn't get Shadow Weaver, so we got Motherboard, who was voiced by Meg Foster from the 87 movie. She played Evil Lynn, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And they're doing like this Borg thing where they're assimilating all the bad guys, and it's like, okay, it's interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the Skeletech design. I wasn't in love with that. Personally, this would have been a great option, because this show used all kinds of iconography for member berries and nostalgia baiting and things like that. And it's like, you could have used the New Adventures design, because the New Adventures Skeletor action figure has cybernetic elements to it. And unfortunately, the toy looked very cool, but it did not translate well to animation at all. If you watch the New Adventures of He-Man cartoon show, that design was not very good. So this could have been a chance to kind of get the toy design and translate it better to a new animation style, and they could have used that, and I think it would have worked, because they referenced 100 other different things, so why not throw that out there? But yeah, where the story falters, there's a lot of things that happen. And again, it's only 5 episodes, so it's very rushed and very bloated. They crammed a lot in here to where, Granomir's whole subplot felt kind of hollow. Granomir is a big character in the original show. He was my favorite guest character. I loved Granomir. He feels completely wasted here, and they don't... He's supposed to have, a relationship with Evelyn, not a romantic one, thank God, but, a partnership with Evelyn, and that is woefully underdeveloped, to where when Granomir and Evelyn are supposed to have their big moment in episode 5, it rings completely hollow, because they spend almost no time together, even though they've been together for a while now, according to the clunky expository dialogue. And a lot of it feels very rushed, and that's a running theme throughout the entire thing. And I guess you could say that about Teela's entire subplot. The Teela-Adam romance basically undid all the lesbian, overtones between Teela and Andra that they were doing in Revelations, and that everybody was pointing out. It's like, so you sidelined Adam so Teela could get a lesbian love interest, and now they've completely undone that. It's like, no, Teela and Adam were together the whole time. We were just playing with you. And I'm like, okay. But it's like, all right, yes, He-Man and Teela should get together. That's a thing from the original show that didn't get fully resolved. And that should be how it goes. But the way they presented it here, it's felt very forced and like they were making fun of it almost. They even had Evelyn do the whole He-Man and Teela sitting in a tree, Kissing. A lot of the jokes in this are really bad. And I don't know if it was like written bad on purpose or because they were upset with how people responded to Revelations. I don't know. I don't know what the mindset behind this one was. But that didn't play very well. They do the whole Keldor thing, which if you don't know, the Keldor thing in the original mini comics that came with the original action figures, they were starting to introduce a storyline where Keldor was Randor's long-lost brother, He-Man's uncle, and He-Man was going to go look for him. And it was left as like a cliffhanger because the toy line ended before that could be resolved. And the original endgame is that Keldor was going to be revealed to be Skeletor. And that's something that's kind of followed Skeletor's character throughout a lot of the different versions of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. They did it in the CGI series. In the 2002 series, they revealed that his name was Keldor before he became Skeletor, though the family relationship to Randor was never revealed. But apparently it was going to go down that road as well. And that's something that's kind of persisted and has followed Skeletor around ever since that mini-comic. I have never been a fan of it. I don't like the idea of Skeletor being He-Man's uncle. I like Skeletor just being Skeletor. And this is where the 2002 series faltered with me a little bit, where everybody had to have an origin, everybody had to have a backstory. And I always felt like with this world and with these characters, the world was so fantastic and so filled with imagination that I was willing to accept that a character like Skeletor could just exist. Like, I never needed an explanation for where Skeletor came from. I never needed an explanation for where Trapjaw came from. I never needed an explanation for where Beastman or any of those characters, Ram Man, Mechanic, I never needed explanations for where any of them came from. I just accepted that they could exist in this world. And that's that requires some, good world building to where you could buy all these characters as just simply existing in this wild and crazy, fantastic, fantasy meets sci-fi type of world. Conan meets Flash Gordon type of world. I don't need an explanation or an origin for all these characters. I'm just willing to accept that they all exist. And that goes back to the original Star Wars. If you go back to episode 4, almost nothing is explained beyond one scene with Obi-Wan Kenobi where he provides some backstory, but they explain hardly anything in that movie, but they present everything in a way where you just accept that it all exists, and you accept it and you buy it. And I wish we could get back to more of that rather than just, explaining who everybody is, where they all came from, and blah, 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 blah. Because if you do everything right, people are just going to accept that these characters exist. And that's something that a lot of He-Man reboots, even the good ones, have kind of faltered on a little bit. Some origins are okay. The original show didn't even have an origin for how Prince Adam became He-Man. It's like, okay, you can do that, but there's you don't have to explain where every single character comes from. And like I said, if your world building is good, then none of that will matter, and you'll be able to make people accept these characters anyway. But getting back to my point, they do the Keldor storyline here, where Keldor comes back. It's Skeletor disguised as Keldor, voiced by William Shatner, which was a little jarring at first, but I got used to it as the show progressed. And William Shatner's always fun, so it's great to hear him. But he convinces Adam to give him the crown, and I'm like, Adam, you've known him for a day. That's really stupid. And then Keldor, out of the blue, leaves the crown in Snake Mountain. So when He-Man goes over to Snake Mountain and starts busting heads and he finds the crown there, he was like, oh no, Keldor is Skeletor. And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have done that, Keldor. Maybe you should just, I don't know, keep the crown with you. I don't know. It's just a lot of this story relies heavily on the characters being complete morons. And then the one that really made me laugh was when I Andra, who's the new Man-at-Arms and the tech expert. So at least she's a weapons master, more so than Teela was when she was knighted Man-at-Arms in Revelations, where they gave her that title. And the writers of that show, I don't think they even knew what that title meant when they gave it to her, because she's not a weapons master, and she was completely clueless about weapons. And I'm like, oh my god, these people don't understand what they're writing for. But anyway, so she creates a cure to this technovirus that's infecting the people of Eternia. That motherboard is having Skeletor spread across the planet. And it's like, okay, and this is before they're even aware of the Horde and that the Horde's coming to Eternia, and Hordak's on the way, voiced wonderfully by Keith David. Keith David's voice is great. Perfect choice for Hordak. But, so Andra comes up with this cure for this technovirus. And of course, Keldor tricked her, and he infects the technovirus into this cure that she created, and everybody becomes a techno, assimilated by the Horde Borg or whatever. And I'm sitting there like, wait a minute, did they just create a plot where a government-mandated vaccine created more problems and almost doomed the world more so than it would have if they'd done nothing at all? I mean, did you do this social commentary on purpose? I doubt that you did, but do you realize what you did here? I don't know. It was super, super funny anyway. But that's all I'm going to say about it, because I don't want to get yanked off YouTube. But it was, oh boy, it was really funny when I saw that. So, but that's the big problem with this whole thing, is that a lot of the plot points rely on the characters being morons for any of it to work. There's another subplot where He-Man gives up the sword to give it to Orko and Duncan, so they can take it off to Gwildor, so Gwildor can mix the magic of Grayskull in the sword with technology, creating a magical, technological hybrid sword. And I'm like, He-Man, why don't you take the sword over? I mean, why would you give up the sword? Like, that just seems stupid. That's so stupid. And he's like, okay, I guess you can say that, like, oh, but He-Man needs to guard Eternia from Skeletech and the Horde Borg or whatever, and he needs to stay to protect Eternia while the others can go off on the mission. It's like, I guess, but it seems really silly of him to give up the sword, because now you're creating more problems where it's like, if the other team goes down, then He-Man's stuck without a sword, and then you're really screwed. I don't know. It just seems silly to me. But again, a lot of this is rushed, a lot of this is poorly explained, and a lot of this is very, very bloated. They cram a lot in here. I mean, Hordak does almost nothing. And I don't think that this was a bait and switch, at least not intentionally. I think we only have 5 episodes, and there's not a whole lot we can do, because the only thing Hordak really does in this whole thing is he fights Skeletor when Skeletor rebels against his programming, and he defeats Hordak. And that's it. I don't think Hordak ever interacted with He-Man or any of the other good guys, so it was like, what was the point of even having him here? But it was actually, in a weird way, at least the fight with Skeletor was cool, because I was sitting there like, all right, how are they gonna ruin Hordak? Let's see. Turns out they ruined him by just rushing him and not really giving him much to do. They act like he's dead, even though a post-credit reveals that he's being healed by one of his generals, who we all know is Despera, who we all know is Princess Adora, who we all know is She-Ra. That's a teaser for She-Ra. I'm like, okay, sure. I would be very surprised if that got made, personally, because I just don't... the interest doesn't seem there, because again, like I said, Revelations did a lot of damage to fan interest and potential in growing the brand with a new audience. I think it was a great opportunity to, keep the fans happy, fan base that was starved for more He-Man, and, grab a new audience, a new generation of fans as well. And they completely squandered that opportunity, and now it's like, I'm shocked they got a season 2 out of this. I would be very surprised if they come back and have another season. But in any case, what else happened in this thing? Well, I got to comment on this, because this was a problem with Revelations too, where they will fill the teaser trailers to these things with so many side characters like Ram Man and Fisto and Clampchamp and Snoutspout and Rio Blast and Grizzlor, Leech, and Mantana, the Horde trio, the original Horde trio. Too Bad and Triclops and Trapjaw and Whiplash. So many of the side characters, because the main characters are, okay, the main characters are He-Man, Teela, Battlecat, Man-at-Arms, Orko, the Sorceress, and to a lesser extent, the King and Queen. And on the bad guy side, the main characters are Skeletor, Evil-Lyn, and maybe Beastman. Everybody else is kind of a side character. And in the teaser trailers, they put the side characters all over the place. And then when you watch the show, they don't do anything. Like, they never do anything of value or of interest or of intrigue or never do anything memorable. The only exception I can think of was Triclops in Revelations, who was heading this whole techno cult that was revealed to be an arm of the Horde. And in Revolution, I don't think he has a line of dialogue. I forgot he was even there. And it was like, dude, he was the one that started all of this. And he's, like, nowhere to be seen during any of this. It seemed like an odd choice to me, but... they put Granomir in the trailer, and Granomir hardly does anything. He probably, of the side characters, he does the most out of any of them, probably. But, Grizzlor, Leech, and Mantenna, they have one scene where they do anything, and then a brief fight scene in another episode, and that's it. They don't have any dialogue. None of them do. And there's a lot of that. Again, it's a lot of nostalgia baiting, a lot of, like, fan servicey stuff, but then when you actually get to the show... they don't do anything. It's like, look, if you're going to use all these characters, actually do something with them, something of interest, rather than just making them another body in an action sequence. Flesh them out a little bit, or have them actually do something. I don't know, but it's a pattern I noticed in Revelations, and it continued here into Revolution, where all these side characters were all over the teaser trailers. Too bad, Grizzlor, Leech, Mantenna, so many of them, and then you get to the show and they don't do anything, and it's like, well, that was a waste, but... Anyway, what else is there to say about Revolution? I guess, like, a comparison I can make is if Revelations was like The Last Jedi, this one is kind of like Rise of Skywalker. Better than Rise of Skywalker, honestly. Less messy than Rise of Skywalker, which isn't saying much. But it's still kind of cut from that same cloth, where it felt like there was a lot of, like, course correction that they were trying to do to make it work. And it is overall better, probably. But it's still kind of a mess. And like I said, if this was the first show they made and it was this level of quality from the beginning, I would have said, okay, it's kind of dumb, but at least it was fun and captured some of the old He-Man spirit. This, coming out of Revelations, you've got to come back with like a Picard Season 3 level redemption to really fix this stuff. And we didn't get that. This was just kind of like, we went from infuriating garbage to kind of mindless nonsense with a couple of cool moments. And it's like, it's an improvement, but I don't think it's good enough to save the brand or to kind of win people back after the disappointment of Revelation. So that's my take on it. Revolution, not a complete disaster, but also not very good. And the next show I want to talk about is one that I was wanting to watch for a while and couldn't get around to it. I'm late to the party on this one, but holidays got busy, family got busy with stuff, and now it's, but I finally got a chance to watch it, and that is Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, the MonsterVerse show that debuted on Apple Plus and features Godzilla as a special guest star. So, I have to say, the reaction to this show from fans and critics alike have been mostly very positive. Like, so I was like, okay, sounds like things turned out really well for this show. That's great that it got that reaction, and if you really like this show, more power to you. I have to admit, I was a little disappointed. My biggest fear going into the show is that it was going to be like a Disney Plus Star Wars or Marvel show. Now, what do I mean by that? And there were many problems with the Disney Plus Marvel and Star Wars shows, but one of the big ones that I've noticed is that they take the time to fill in the blanks between the movies and give us information that we never needed. Just giving us a bunch of information that we never needed, and restating things and filling in blanks that never needed to be filled, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. What was Obi-Wan's life like on Tatooine? And like, we don't really need that filled in, do we? I feel like we got it. I feel like we're good. I didn't need to see an entire show about how Falcon became Captain America. I assumed we got that at the end of Endgame. I thought we were kind of already on that path. I don't know. That's just my take. And I was fearful that Monarch Legacy of Monsters was going to go down that same path and just take the time to fill in blanks to things that we just never needed based on any of the MonsterVerse films. For an example, this show takes the time to explain the origins of the Apex Corporation, which built Mechagodzilla and Godzilla vs. Kong. And I'm like, guys, I never needed an explanation for that. I never needed to know where Apex came from, but they felt like they needed to take the time to explain where Apex came from. It's like, I was perfectly fine. They were just a cybernetics company that said, hey, you know what? These monsters are here. we can build our own robot monster. That would be kind of cool. That was all I needed. I didn't need a full-fledged origin story for the Apex Corporation. But anyway, they also introduced something called the Axis Mundi, which is like a nether realm between the Hollow Earth and the human world. Kind of reminds me of the Upside Down from Stranger Things. I would not be surprised if that inspired it. But time works differently there, almost like a reverse Narnia almost, where time in the human world works much faster, and in the Axis Mundi, time works much slower. Again, reverse Narnia. And it kind of serves as an explanation for Godzilla's apparent immortality, which again is something I never needed explained. It's like I just kind of always assumed that Godzilla was a genetic abnormality, and empowered by nuclear power, and as long as he had nuclear energy to feed off of, he could live forever. I just kind of always assumed that. I never needed to have any kind of an explanation for why Godzilla is apparently immortal. Things like that. And so the show really takes the time to fill in a lot of blanks that never needed to be filled. And I think my biggest issue is that the human drama with the main family of characters in the 2015 timeline. The show also splits timelines, which I'll get into that in a second. But the family drama with the brother and the sister and their dad who works for Monarch, I didn't care about any of that at all whatsoever. So it's like most of it focuses on this human drama that I did not care for at all. And like I said, the show jumps back and forth between 2015, right after the events of the 2014 Godzilla film, and the 1950s when Monarch was first formed and Godzilla was first awakened. I much preferred the 1950s cast because it's kind of got these old-timey kind of adventure serial kind of characters almost. I wish they had played with that more. I would have preferred it if we'd spent the entire show with those characters, quite honestly. I did think it was cool that Kurt Russell's son played his younger self. I thought that was a very nice touch. But I would have preferred it if the show was just kind of told chronologically. The whole, jumping between timelines thing, I think, is becoming tired. I don't know if this was an industry red tape thing where if you're listed as a lead actor, you have to appear in so many amount of episodes, and telling all of the events chronologically kind of prevents that, so they had to do it this way. I don't know, but whatever the case, it makes the show jarring when it's jumping back and forth between the two timelines until they intersect towards the end. And even a show I really liked, Fall of the House of Usher, I thought was a really, really good show. It references a bunch of old Edgar Allan Poe stories, and it's very well cast and very well made show. I think it would have benefited from just having all the events play out chronologically, and so you're kind of guessing in each episode who's going to bite the dust, rather than just straight up telling us who's going to bite the dust, or telling us right from the very beginning that everybody bites the dust in every episode. I don't know. It's just, I would have preferred it to be chronological, even though the show was very good. And the show runs into that problem here where the jumping back and forth between timelines is just very, very jarring. But and it's a show about Monarch. Ken Watanabe is not there at all, which felt like a misstep. He was the face of Monarch for the first two MonsterVerse Godzilla films. To me, this would have been a perfect opportunity to bring him back. I don't know what his health is, and even if he was available, but doing a Monarch show without him in any capacity kind of felt off to me, because he was the face of Monarch for the first two movies. And I guess God, where do I want to go with this? Well, the show is very light on monster action. I knew that Godzilla was not going to be in the show much. I knew that right from the beginning, and I called that. And he's not. He's not in the show that much, which would be fine. But, and this kind of leads into what I kind of wanted the show to be. I wanted the show to be one of two things. I wanted it to be either a chronological history of Monarch, which it kind of does, but again, it fills it with this human drama that doesn't really play well, and I don't connect with that at all. And it doesn't capture it's not told chronologically, so it feels a little messy. But a history of Monarch show would have been nice, with them, all the monster events that they've dealt with and even covered up over the years. And I also would have enjoyed a Monster Hunter show. Just have Monarch dealing with a new monster in every episode and doing kind of a rehash, like a modern day Ultra Q with Godzilla as a recurring guest star. Something like that would have been fun. But there's not a lot of monster action in this. There's a brief fight in the first episode. You get a couple of scenes with Godzilla that kind of reverse the perspective of the 2014 film, which was pretty cool and nice to see. A couple of cool moments with Godzilla. There's one episode that focuses on the Frostvark, which is another Titan, a new Titan for the show. And then Godzilla battles the Ion Dragon in the end, and that's pretty much it. There's a cameo from King Kong at the very end. There's not a lot of monster action in this. It's very light, which would be okay. I think -1 proved that, you don't have to have wall-to-wall monster action as long as your human drama is very, very good and engaging. The problem is this show is light on monster action and the human drama is not very engaging at all. So I'm just sitting there as like, can we get to the monsters, please? Please, just give me something. And so that was a problem. But I don't want to sound like I'm completely dunking on the show. There were some positives. Like I said, there were some cool moments with Godzilla. Some of the connections to the 2014 film were very cool. Some of the monster scenes were very cool, the ones that we did get. I think Kurt Russell holds the show together well. He's great in it because he's Kurt Russell and he's great in everything he's in. He's by far the best person in the show. I thought the actress who played, forget her name, but she played Kumiko in Karate Kid Part 2. I thought she was very good, and it's like, man, could she be one of the stars? Like, she was very good in this, and she was only in it for like 1 or 2 episodes. But she was very good. So a couple of good performances, a couple of cool moments with the monsters, but the entire experience just felt like unnecessary fluff, and I think that was the biggest problem with it, unfortunately. So it was very well received by critics and fans, which is great. That's cool. Personally, I like Masters of the Skies more. My wife and I are currently watching that, and I think that show was very good. And I was like, man, I didn't hear anybody talk about this show, and I'm like, this show's great. I kind of want to watch more of it. But we're 2 episodes in, and I'm like, man, I'm really enjoying it so far. But Monarch Legacy of Monsters, to me, kind of missed the boat, kind of focuses on the wrong things. And again, a little disappointing. It's weird, like the monster-based, the kaiju-based TV shows like Ultraman on Netflix was a complete waste of time. Skull Island was mid as hell until the last 2 episodes, and I don't know if the entire experience was worth those last 2 episodes. Godzilla's Singular Point was okay, but bogged down with unnecessary technobabble and expository dialogue. This show, couple of cool moments, but overall kind of feels pointless in the grand scheme of things. It's like, man, the Gamera show was the best one of the bunch by far. It's like, because Gamera's like, hey, we're going to put Gamera in every episode. He's going to fight a monster in every episode. It's like, yeah, cool. Do that. And you have this like, Stand By Me style cast of kids. They're getting into trouble. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, this is fun. This is fun. But this one kind of missed the mark for me. I don't know. There's talks of a season 2. Maybe that'll be better. I don't know. But it's, yeah. It was there, I guess. And I guess I expected a little bit more from it, especially with the positive response that it received. But, I'm not mad at it. I'm just disappointed. And that's not a good feeling to have. But again, I've seen worse. And speaking of Godzilla, a certain trailer dropped last week that I just have to talk about, and that is the second trailer to Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, giving us a better idea of what we can expect from this sequel to the 2021 crossover between the 2 legendary monsters. Now, -1, excellent movie, fantastic Godzilla movie, arguably the best Godzilla movie ever made. It's a grounded, serious, emotionally charged drama that really showed off the best of what the genre and what the Godzilla franchise is capable of. This appears to be the exact opposite of that, where they're going for pure balls to the walls monster spectacle, where it's going to be Godzilla and Kong battling God knows what and just operating with complete reckless abandon and just having fun with it. Now, some people like the crazy spectacle. Some people like the grounded dramas, and they're going to decry the opposite. Whichever one they like, they're going to decry the opposite one. I'm one of the ones that likes both. I've said it before that one of the keys to Godzilla's longevity has been his surprising amount of versatility, where it's like, you can be goofy, you can be serious, nothing's off limits with Godzilla. And it's a surprising amount of versatility that he has, the character and the franchise all have. And after getting such a grounded and emotional drama from -1, I'm like, I could go for some off-the-wall crazy for another Godzilla movie, and that appears to be what we're getting here, with Godzilla getting, a lot of fans are making the comment that he's going Super Saiyan Rose. I'm assuming that's from the new Dragon Ball Z series or Dragon Ball Super or whatever. I've never seen it, but I'm assuming that's where it comes from. I haven't watched anything since the Majin Buu saga, so I'm really out of the loop when it comes to Dragon Ball. But we're getting that. Kong is getting a giant metal glove that he's going to punch things with, and it's like, okay, this one's just going to go crazy, and it's doing whatever the heck they want. And it's going to have monsters galore, including 2 new monsters for Godzilla and Kong to battle. One of them we know is the Scar King, the orangutan-looking creature that we saw from the earliest teaser back when that was the first visual we saw in the film. And it's like, okay, we've got Lanky Kong as the villain. That's kind of neat. And another creature that was covered in shadows in the trailer. They didn't really give us a full look of, but from what I've heard and what the toy leaks have suggested, this monster is named Shimo. I hope I'm saying that right, or I don't know for sure, but haven't seen the movie yet, haven't really gotten a good full look of the creature yet. I just know its name is Shimo, and it's supposed to be like, the monster Death Star. That is powerful enough to deal with both Godzilla and Kong. Whatever the case, I will say this. I think it's very cool that they're going the route of making new enemies for Godzilla and Kong, because when I first got into Godzilla, I started off, watching the 60s and 70s, and one of the major appeals for me in watching each new sequel was, okay, I just watched him fight a cyborg chicken from outer space. What's he going to fight next? Oh, he's going to fight a giant beetle. Okay, what's he going to fight next? Oh, now he's fighting a robot version of himself. Okay, cool. And that was always the appeal, this escalation of like, all right, what crazy thing is he going to fight next? And this is going more into that route, because one of my criticisms of some of the more modern Godzilla movies, and a lot of them I've really enjoyed. I don't want to paint the picture that I've been sitting there miserable, like, oh my god, these movies are so bad. It's like, no, I've enjoyed almost every Godzilla movie that's come out since the turn of the century. My problem, though, is that when you look at the Millennium films, they kind of got into this pattern of, okay, we got to bring Mothra back, we got to bring King Ghidorah back, we got to bring Mechagodzilla back, and like they've got this handful of monsters that always come back, and each new version of Godzilla is going to have Mothra, King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla, maybe Rodan, if we're lucky. And it's kind of like, when the Heisei series did that in the 90s, those monsters hadn't been seen in 20, 30 years in some cases, and it's like, that was exciting because we hadn't seen them in a long time, but now it's like, I feel like we've kind of seen them, quite a bit. And then when the MonsterVerse rolled around, they started off with like, okay, we're introducing Mutos and Skull Crawlers. I'm like, okay, that's neat. But then, of course, King of the Monsters did King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan. And then Godzilla vs. Kong did Mechagodzilla. And the anime trilogy, who did the anime trilogy bring back? Brought back Mothra, sort of, Mechagodzilla, sort of, and King Ghidorah. More so than the other two, but still kind of, sort of. And for whatever reason, it's like they have their core group that they always bring back. And I was always kind of like, yeah, but where are the new monsters? Can we get some new monsters? And actually, if you want to bring monsters back, there's a whole slew of monsters from the Heisei era that have never been brought back in a movie, like Biollante, Destroya, and Space Godzilla. So if you're going to bring anybody back, let's go into the Heisei pool for once and do that. But I kind of like that this movie is like, no, we're bringing in an evil Kong and a giant ice dinosaur, and it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. I like that. I may have talked about this before. I don't know. But if I have, whatever, I'll retell the story here. Based on what I've seen from Shimo, it's super funny to me. When I was a kid, I used to draw very bad drawings of Godzilla and the monster co-stars and things, but I would also try to create new monsters for them to fight. I actually turned one such monster in as an art project for school. I don't remember the name of it, but it was like this giant yellow ball-shaped creature that had tentacles and a laser gun mounted on one of its tentacles and things like that. It was like the stupidest looking thing ever. But I was in that same vein of like, what else can Godzilla fight? What crazy thing can I come up with? And one of the monsters I came up with was the oh-so creative Isosaurus. And the name, Chef's Kiss. I was so clever. I was so proud of myself that I came out. And keep in mind, I was like 7 years old when I drew this thing. And it was a quadrupedal dinosaur that spit ice beams. And Shimo looks like a quadrupedal dinosaur that spits ice beams. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting to see Isosaurus on a film. And now, I am not in any way trying to imply that Legendary and Warner Brothers ripped me off. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I want to be paid royalties for the creation of this character. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that they created a creature that a 7-year-old, that a literal 7-year-old could come up with. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that they're just kind of having fun with it and just being a little crazy. And hopefully it's a very entertaining film. Now, it could go the other direction and turn into like a Transformers Michael Bay film where it's just mindless nonsense and I don't know what's going on and I just wind up bored half the time. I wouldn't want it to turn into that. But hopefully there's if you're going to go for off-the-wall spectacle, there's a way to do it and to keep it exciting. And hopefully this film leans more into that direction in doing that. And this one seems to be operating with like, okay, we did the Kong Godzilla crossover in the last one and everyone loved it. Let's just go for broke and just go nuts. Just completely go nuts this time around. And hopefully it pays off because the trailer looked promising. It looked like a lot of fun. And hopefully I'm going to have a good time when I see it in theaters. Now, I will not be seeing it opening weekend because that weekend is my wife's birthday. So I will be off doing that. And there are far more important things than going to see a Godzilla movie. And also, I'm at the point in my life where it's like, dude, the whole like going to a midnight screening or having to be there opening weekend, I'm like, I can wait. I'm fine. I'm too old for that crap. I just want to see the movie. I can wait a week. I don't care. But we actually used to do that in my family when I was a kid. We used to, because my dad didn't like dealing with the big crowd, so he would be like, okay, can we wait a week? Do we have to see The Lion King opening weekend? Do we have to see Aladdin opening weekend? We can wait a week. And I'm like, yeah, sure, fine. I don't care. But, and so it's like, I guess I'm carrying on that tradition now where it's like, I can wait, I can wait a week or two. I don't care, but it's fine. But in any case, I think Godzilla and Kong looks like a lot of fun and hopefully that's what we get, come movie time, but we shall see. And let's wrap this up by talking about another trailer that dropped this week for another show that's actually going to be dropping on my birthday, March 20th. X-Men 1997, or X-Men 97, I forget what they're calling it exactly, but it's a continuation of the original X-Men animated series that I grew up with in the 90s and absolutely adored when I was a kid. There were 2 comic book-based superhero shows that we all loved, Batman the Animated Series and friggin' X-Men. There were other ones that came around. There was the 90s Spider-Man show. There was the Superman show, which I think is massively underrated, by the way. There were a few other ones, and Marvel had like a ton of them that, I remember the Fantastic Four and Iron Man shows being on at like 6 in the morning or something crazy like that. But we all unanimously agreed that the 2 best were Batman the Animated Series and X-Men. And whichever one was your favorite, it had to be one of those 2. And no other answer was acceptable. But because we were very, very strict kids about what you could like and what you could say was your favorite. But anyway, I adored the original X-Men show. It looks like they've got most of the voice cast back and some of the same people involved. A similar visual style, obviously updated for, given the technologies and how things have advanced since the 1990s. The trailer looked good. I'm not gonna lie, the trailer looked good. It looked exciting. Wolverine's voice actor sounds a little old now, but other than that, it was like, okay, this looks pretty good. I was against the idea of them doing this show because I thought the finale to the X-Men show was very, very good with, Charles Xavier almost dying, but then getting taken to an alien world. So it's like, okay, so this is like one of those like censorship things, right, where they couldn't kill him, so they had to concoct something stupid to kind of remove him. But regardless, I thought the finale to that show was very, very good and actually brought a tear to my eye when I saw it way back in the day. So we're talking like very emotionally impactful a finale, and I didn't like the idea of undoing that. But, all right, they're doing the show. Like I said, the trailer looks good. However, I don't trust it. I've fallen for this crap before. I've talked about He-Man and Masters of the Universe Revelations. I talked about that, how that first trailer looked amazing, and then come showtime, I was like, this is the worst thing to ever happen to He-Man. What in the world did you do? Just because the trailer's good doesn't mean the show's going to be good. So, again, I'm going to be operating under the same rule because I am beyond just watching something because I'm a fan of the brand. Again, Revelations did some damage to me where I'm like, okay, no more watching things blindly, no more, like, watching things just because it's based on something that I like. it needs to have really good word of mouth. So I'm going to wait for the word of mouth. And if it's good, I'll watch it. If it's bad, I'm not going to waste my time with it. And that's kind of where I am right now. And I'll tell you right now, I don't trust Disney. I don't trust them at all. They have squandered all of my goodwill. They did that a long time ago. They've ruined Star Wars. They took the biggest cash cow imaginable, two of the biggest cash cows imaginable, Marvel, the MCU, and Star Wars, and they have absolutely destroyed both of them. How you do that, I don't know. But that's something that should be studied. How you took like two of the biggest cash cows in entertainment history and devalued them to the point where they're basically failing brands at this point. So, yeah, I don't trust Disney. I have little to no faith in them. So I'm expecting this show to... I'm going into it with low expectations. Like I said, if the word of mouth is bad, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to waste my time. Because it's like, Velma is getting a season 2, even though everybody hated it. I'm like, yeah, but everybody that hated it also watched it. And that's the problem. So it's like, I operate under that whole, like, just, if it's bad, don't watch it. It's like what the critics said years ago, Jay Sherman. If you stop watching bad movies, they'll stop making bad movies. And I'm like, okay, if I stop watching bad shows, maybe they'll stop making bad shows. So it's like, they're not going to get my clicks. They're not going to get my time. They're not going to get any of that. The only reason I'm still subscribed to Disney Plus is because there's old movies I want to watch and stuff that my daughter can watch. And Bluey's a really good show, not going to lie. Bluey's actually pretty good, and I can't wait until my daughter's a little older and she can appreciate it too. But, so yeah, again, trailer looked really good, but we shall see. I'm going into this with some trepidation, so hopefully it turns out well, because X-Men is a show that does not deserve to be disrespected and does not deserve to be deconstructed or ruined or whatever the heck else they've done with all the other shows that have come up. X-Men was a really, really good show from my childhood that deserved all of the praise it got. And if they do anything to screw with that, I'm going to be very mad. But I also will not watch it if they did. So that's my take on that. Looks promising, but we've been down this road before, so we'll see. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching me rant and rave. Again, if you want to see more from this channel, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos, and follow me on Twitter at PatrickGBook. That will be in the description as well. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all later.